Hello and welcome to Nextra. I'm very pleased to say that we're joined by the eminent military analyst, Dr. Shahram Kholdi, to discuss what's been happening in Iran over the last few hours. Shahram, let's start with the reports from Iran that very, very important targets have been hit. What can you confirm about that?
We know that the top brass of the Iranian armed forces, especially the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, the IRGC, they have been hit. There is information that the headquarters of the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, has been hit. We have information that the Supreme National Security Council of the Islamic Republic has been hit. It is imperative to mention here that the attack started to happen between early to mid-morning, which is like about 8 o'clock in the morning, which is completely different from the June attacks in one stark, I would say, respect. And that is the fact that generally, and based on experience, the officials of the Islamic Republic since June began constantly changing the place at which they would sleep overnight since June 2025. It appears to me that American and Israeli intelligence began tracking them, and because it would become too difficult for them to precisely identify at what point they would be, they decided on a morning attack when all these people would be at their supposed workplace.
And Shahram, can we just take a look at Donald Trump's speech in which he announces the beginning of major combat operations? He addressed the IRGC and others directly. He basically said to the IRGC, armed forces and police, lay down your weapons and we will offer you complete immunity. Do that or face certain death. I'm paraphrasing slightly, Shahram, but what does this tell you about his commitment to drive this operation?
Well, first and foremost, we should not forget that Donald Trump, as the President of the United States, has a tendency to change his mind on a whim. He does not stay the course the way other presidents would when they would make a military decision. Of course, based on what we hear, it seems that he listens to his top brass. That's for certain. But if Trump is serious, per his own speech, and we could hold him to his word, this is going to continue at least until 20th of March, which is the beginning of the Iranian New Year, which coincides the spring equinox, as per the Iranian tradition over the past 2,000 years. And when the celebrations of Nowruz start, this should stop.
And Trump has said American lives may be lost, but essentially that this was necessary to secure the future. He's clearly preparing the American public for the worst. Does this show the level of his commitment here?
That is correct. And a few days ago, when Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, met with Senate and congressional leaders, Chuck Schumer, the minority leader of the Democrats in the Senate, came out and said that the President of the United States must explain everything to Americans in detail. And I believe Rubio told the Senate and House of Representative leaders at that time, this is like a couple of days ago, that the United States was going to strike. So the historical context is important. Trump drew a historical context here. He referred to the hostage-taking crisis when the revolutionaries under Ayatollah Khamenei, soon after they overthrew the Shah of Iran in 1979, attacked the U.S. embassy and took American diplomats hostage. And the new revolutionary regime humiliated the United States and President Carter. Trump reminded Americans of those 444 days that American diplomats languished at the hands of the founders of the present regime. So, and then he reminded them, of course, of the Iranian proxies and how many American troops were the victims of the Revolutionary Guards of the Islamic Republic IEDs in Iraq. I think the case that the President of the United States made was robust.
And Trump appealed directly to the Iranian people in his speech, Shahram. He said, take over your government institutions once the bombing has stopped. Take this chance for freedom. I'm paraphrasing here, of course. But what has been the reaction from Iranians so far?
I think the most amazing thing about this operation, this war, I mean, let's not mince words about it, is that as the Israelis are taking shelter, Iranians are on the rooftops, on the balconies, on the streets, in schoolyards, even though it took the government a few hours to shut down those schools, dancing, celebrating the attack by the American Israeli forces. Who has heard such a thing in history? Even Iraqis did not celebrate or dance as Saddam Hussein was being struck down by the American forces, not until after the Republican Guard had been decimated by the Americans and the American troops were in the suburbs of Baghdad did such a thing take place.
Is it likely that elements within the IRGC, the armed forces, and the police actually defect and show sympathy towards the protesters?
Well, I served as a second lieutenant in the Iranian armed forces, in the regular army, of course, not in the IRGC, in the early 1990s. And based on that experience and the fact that there has been little change in the military geography in Iran, in the respect that I'm going to explain to you, over the past 30 years, nearby every army barrack, there is an IRGC base. Why? Because in the same manner that in Nazi Germany, the SS were making sure that the Wehrmacht, the regular German armed forces, are going to be loyal to the Nazi leaders, the same way the Islamic Republic has placed strategically most of these IRGC bases near where the regular army is. So the regular army is more amenable to defecting to the side of the people, in my opinion, if their very own commanders, who've been very loyal to the Supreme Leader Khamenei, and IRGC troops and barracks are hit and are hit hard. And I would venture that the police would join the people in no time. But we know that the Islamic Republic, the IRGC, they used drones, military drones, to put down demonstrators, unarmed demonstrators. So when they do that with unarmed demonstrators, they would certainly, pardon me, do that if the armed forces decides to regular armed forces decides to rise against them. So it will not happen now or tomorrow, but if this operation continues and hits hard at the battalions, the brigades, and all the major troop formations of IRGC, then people would be able to reach out to the regular armed forces, and the regular armed forces would reach out to the people, and this regime would be done and over with by Nowruz, by the 20th of March.
The United States and Israel are working together on this combat operation. Have they divided up responsibilities?
Well, based on what we hear from sources in Israel and, of course, sources in Iran, it appears that the American tomahawks are hitting the ballistic missile and ballistic missile launchers and facilities and nuclear facilities of the Islamic Republic. But it seems that the Israelis, who have traditionally had the best possible intelligence on Iran, are going for the head of the snake, are going for the top brass of the Revolutionary Guards Corps. They have already apparently killed the Minister of Defense and the IRGC chief commander. And also, we are hearing that they have killed the judiciary chief who was implicated as a young judge in the massacre of 4,000 political dissidents in the summer of 1988.
Clearly, Iran is retaliating. Can you tell us about the impact on the region and the region's reaction?
Well, I think the big regional players are all in with the Americans and with the Israelis. Even after the Israelis hit Doha, the capital of Qatar, trying to kill the political leadership of Hamas there, still we know from reliable sources that Qatar, even Kuwait and Oman, that are not part of the Abraham Accords, in addition to Qatar and Saudi Arabia, participated in security and intelligence briefings with the Israelis and the Americans. Briefings about the movement of the the Islamic Republic's proxy forces and the Islamic Republic's own IRGC in the region. So, and lest we forget that the defense minister of Saudi Arabia was reported a month ago almost now that he had told the Americans that if they do not strike Iran, the Islamic Republic now, the Islamic Republic will be intractable forever. And then, of course, they denied it. So I believe that in view of the fact that ballistic missiles have been sent from Iran towards countries in the region, in addition to Israel, in the Persian Gulf region, I think they are all in. My concern is that Hezbollah or the Houthis in Yemen, as well as some of the Iraqi proxies of the Islamic Republic, would wish to expand this war. But I am sure that the Israelis and the Americans have already planned for this, and they would all be quelled and repulsed.
There is a lot of discussion about the legality of these strikes. Some analysts saying they're not legal. Others would say, well, if it was preemptive or in self-defense, it's arguable. What's your opinion?
I will answer by just one piece of evidence that the IAEA yesterday reported. The Islamic Republic, just before the beginning of the 12-day war in June, just as the IAEA Board of Governors was about to issue a resolution against the Islamic Republic in May, early June, informed the world that it had yet another enrichment facility, that it hadn't reported about it before. So all these years, since 2015 and JCPOA, the Islamic regime has had a parallel secret nuclear program. It doesn't matter whether it was purely civilian or not. The NPT, the Non-Proliferation Convention of the United Nations, requires the Islamic Republic to be absolutely transparent about its activities. It has not been. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Islamic Republic, constantly since the June war, said that the 400 kilogram enriched uranium, that they have enriched it up to weapons grade, 60%, was under the rubble of the sites that the Americans had struck. Now we hear that they are available, they are in an accessible tunnel near one of those sites. The Islamic Republic was lying. The Islamic Republic still has the ability to build dirty warheads made of radioactive fuel, even though it might not be a real nuclear bomb. And radioactive pollution detonated over any population center can have a catastrophic result for the people who live in that area, be it people in Israel, be it people in Qatar, be it people in Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and anywhere else. So preemptive strikes in such situations are, of course, warranted. The question of legality would always be controversial, and that is not the first time that it has happened in the history of post-World War world.
Dr. Shahram Kholdi, thank you so much for joining us so soon after the strikes have begun and at this pivotal time for Iran. Thank you for your analysis.
Thank you very much for having me.